Horist, and welcome to our program again. Today we're going to take up a subject that's been kicked around a lot, but there's a lot of information that I think people don't know about it, and it was a very, very important document in heading us to this entire 2.5 years of investigations and accusations and all of this special counsels. And that's something called the Steele dossier, named after the British agent who got it from the Russians and paid for by the Hillary Clinton campaign. So let's turn to our panel and talk a little bit about that key role that dossier played in so many things that have unfolded for the last 2 years. And with us we have Marina, Preston, and Joe. So let's begin with Joe.
Charged as the Clinton investigation, where lives were actually lost, and they're trying to figure out how that happened, and then you walk away from that, and nobody gives it a second thought, but yet there's made-up stories against Donald Trump and his campaign and his administration that have absolutely no merit, no proof.
I think it's easy to portray the genesis of the Mueller investigation as the cover-up for Hillary's crimes. It did appear during the elections, during the campaigns. That's when the first allegations against Trump cooperating with the Russians came out. I mean, it was meant to be, I think it was originally meant to be just a campaign allegation to lose Trump some points, just to sow some doubt there. But then it evolved in this big
cry wolf.
Well, but there was a certain Keystone Cops during the campaign. I mean, they were falling all over themselves. I don't know. If you watched the press conference with Comey, I was convinced he was going to indict her.
Yeah.
He let up. Yeah. She did this. She did that. She was reckless. She was that. She was this. But there's not any case for an indictment. Right. I thought, what is that about? And even that is a little bit inexplicable. Why did that happen at that time? And what were they trying to do? Russian collusion in our election was known to the Obama administration months before they revealed it.
Let me interject here. I'm a former intelligence officer. I've worked against the Russians, or the Soviet Union at that time, the KGB, the GRU. The Russians are always doing something, and we're always doing something as well. So what I see, and I heard some figures. Well, there was $70,000 worth of advertising. Well, for most marketing agencies, that's a slow afternoon. So there was absolutely no impact from the amount of money, even if they spent several $1 million. That has no impact on an election that's worth billions and billions of dollars.
We also have to remember that it's gotten kind of distorted to saying everything the Russians did was to help Trump.
Right.
When this story first came out, they articulated and showed how they used social media against Trump, not for him, against them. Then they showed how a lot of it was just to disrupt things in America, mostly along racial lines, pitting white supremacists against black activists and things of that sort. So the Russians were not clearly trying to get Trump elected, because I believe they believed what almost everybody else seemed to believe: he wasn't going to get elected under any circumstances.
I think their focus was to make sure Hillary didn't get elected. They don't care who did, as long as she didn't. If anything, but I don't agree that there was collusion to help Donald Trump.
Here's my perspective from the CIA. The Russians weren't trying to do anything. Right. The Russians are very, very capable. They're a very capable intelligence service. If they were trying to do something, there would have been an effect. Right. There's no. I mean, you agree, right?
100%.
Yeah. They were developing capabilities. They were doing tests. They were building tools, because that's what they always do. If the Russians wanted to have an effect on our election, they would have, because they're that good.
Let me ask
Marina,
because it comes from there. You lived under that culture.
You're one of those non-Russians.
You know more than we do about what that culture's like from the inside. And so when you saw these claims of Russian involvement in our election, what were you thinking about in terms of you're having been in Russia, know the psyche, if you will.
Believe it or not, I was accused to be involved
There you go. Nice.
in the whole propaganda. I was asked numbers of times, am I involved? And the response is, of course not. But
Well, who was accusing you?
everyone.
Everyone.
Mhm.
All your
As soon as you
coworkers?
hear my Russian accent,
Yeah.
did you do something?
All right, there you go. Wait,
Yes.
did you do something?
Um,
Okay.
should I? No, I didn't.
Okay.
But did you see it as sort of the normal course of business for what you know of the Russian establishment?
Yes, they're very capable, and I agree with Joe. If the goal was to really interrupt the election and get things done a certain way, it would have been done that way. But
They
in
would.
this case,
But-
Yeah.
100%.
They know how to
right.
do that.
But
They've
they
done
don't-
it many times.
But
Right.
but what was on the table wasn't whether or not Russia got involved with the elections. It's whether or not Trump and his campaign
Correct.
worked with them.
Right.
And for all that we
Different
know,
question.
they may have actually been involved,
Mhm.
particularly with the Facebook marketing and all that. That was effective. That was very effective. And
It was a very small effort, though. It was effective.
but it was
with
very
people who read it.
effective. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but Trump had nothing to do with that.
Yeah,
That's
but
the point.
I'm going to say that it wasn't that effective because it didn't change anything. The one thing everybody agreed on, and we have to remember things, following the election, everybody, including our law enforcement agencies, the CIA, and President Obama saying publicly, nothing changed the election. They did not hack into the machines, which
Right,
they could
exactly.
have, which
Right.
they could have,
Yeah.
but they knew that would be real bad stuff for them. They could have done more, but they didn't. Their social media campaign was determined to have not changed any discernible votes.
They,
Right.
they certainly added fire to, they added fuel to the fire, but
But they
Okay.
can't hack
They
into the
have
machines
nothing to
anyways. They're
do.
not online.
Wouldn't you have liked to have been there when they went into Putin and said, Trump got elected? What? What? Are you kidding me?
All right, so if you don't mind, let's segue into the Steele dossier. Okay, so I read this. It came out on BuzzFeed. I mean, shortly after the election, and it's like I'm looking at this as a former intelligence officer. I'm looking at this, saying there is no way in hell that any professional intelligence officer produced this document, and you know why? Because there was enough information in that document to identify sources and methods. Every intelligence, and this is drilled into you in the CIA, you do not put enough information in your reports to identify your sources because you will lose them. Now you could read in this report enough that, okay, he's one of 5 people in the Russian government. Okay, well, anybody who knows the old KGB, and I don't know if it's still the same, but the KGB would just arrest all those people, throw them in the dungeon, and interrogate them. So that you would have lost your agent. In the United States, CIA officers will not tell politicians, will not give them enough information to identify their sources, because politicians always leak that information, and then your agent is dead. And an agent to a CIA officer is someone that they recruited, that they spent 6 months or a year befriending and putting into, and recruiting this person. They're good friends. So, I mean, to me, it was obvious from the start that the Steele dossier was fake.
I think there's another thing to consider about the dossier, because the media, again, gives false impressions when they say some of that information has been substantiated. Well, what was substantiated? Well, he was in Moscow during the times of this.
Yeah.
Well, if you're going to make a phony dossier, you're going to
You gotta
sprinkle it
match
with
the
some
same
facts.
stuff, yeah.
Well, you're certainly not going to say all this occurred at a time when he
it
was in
impossible.
New Mexico.
And in the intelligence community, once one part of a report is known to be fabricated, throw away the whole thing, because you don't know what else is in that document that's fabricated.
That's right.
And that the
Correct.
whole document is useless.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that.
And unfortunately, they made use of it.
They made use of it.
Yeah.
It's fake. I mean, obviously.
But
But that was the impetus for the launch of the Mueller investigation, and that was funded by the Hillary Clinton campaign.
That's right.
Right.
So this whole thing investigated of the Trump side was predicated on false information, misused, abused by the top law enforcement officials in America to achieve a political end contrary to what the American people decided in the
To
voting.
defraud the
booth.
judges who gave the
Yeah.
FISA warrants. Those judges were defrauded by a fake report.
And so I do
It's a
believe
legal
we're going
term,
to,
Right.
there's another element we haven't talked about too.
Sorry, I
It
didn't
always
touch
was
you.
a mystery to me
Oh, it's
that
okay,
the
Ryan.
dossier,
Sorry.
it's always a mystery to me that the dossier was first handed over by the Russians.
Right.
So where is the Russian connection in that investigation? Why aren't we looking at why Steele got information from Russia? That to me is collusion.
Yeah.
Paid for by the Clinton
Hillary
campaign. You've got. I think everybody's made a lot of very good points today, and we welcome you to come back the next time we're here, and we'll be talking about another interesting subject. So it's bye bye.